The story begins with a young man recounting his tale. His voice brims with excitement as he talks about the skills he carefully picked for his fresh start. His old life and memories were traded at a steep price. He calls himself Kelvin and tells himself to enjoy the new world. Suddenly, he crashes into a forest with a loud thud. A rabbit, two slimes, and a bear dart out of their hiding spots at the noise, finding Kelvin sprawled at the base of a towering tree. Groggy from the fall, he stands up, rubbing his head, and wonders where he is. Out of nowhere, a brown menu pops up in front of him. With no memory of his past life, he mutters confused questions. Is he dead? In another world? The menu shows a Start Adventure button, and he cautiously presses it. A woman's voice blares from the menu, calling him my lord, and congratulating him on being randomly chosen for reincarnation. She spins around him, explaining that he agreed to this, but no longer remembers his past world. Shocked and annoyed, he curses his past self for landing him in this absurd situation. The menu assures him he's in a fantasy world of swords and magic, then displays his status screen with the skills he handpicked before rebirth. Kelvin's eyes widen. He's only level 1, but his skills are far beyond that. He's a summoner, the highest adventurer class. His stats: Agility 3, Magic 5, Luck 4. His special skills: Summoning, Green Magic, and Appraising Eyes. Impressed by his past self's choice of a support-focused build, he apologizes for doubting it. The menu suggests heading to the nearest town's guild to register as an adventurer, making contracts easier. On the way, Kelvin asks if the menuno revealed as Melfina, age 1, 276, will join his adventure. She giggles and shows her stats, but he can't see the full details until his Appraising Eyes rank up. Soon, they reach the Adventurer's Guild. Inside, receptionists hustle to handle adventurers' requests. Kelvin registers, listing his class as a low-rank green mage. Melfina's idea to hide his rare summoner status. He just wants to savor his freedom. The receptionist hands him a membership card and explains the rules. F-rank adventurers can take jobs 1 rank higher, but face penalties for failure. 3 job offers appear, and Melfina nudges him towards slaying 3 blue slime, hinting he should try summoning 1. He takes the jobs and leaves the guild with a wooden rod. Walking deep into the forest, he spots 3 slimes in the middle of a clearing. He approaches one to form his summoner contract. Without preparing, he charges to attack, but misses and gets hit repeatedly. Surprised, he studies the slime's movements and speeds up. This time, he lands a hit and seals the contract, naming the slime Clotho. He summons it to absorb the other slimes. Clotho succeeds with 2 while he finishes off the 3rd to complete his task. Back at the guild, he collects his payment for his first adventure. While searching for the inn Ange, the receptionist recommended, he notices a slave trader between 2 buildings, surrounded by bidders. Inside a cage, 2 women sit in Desperon, a normal girl, the other a half-elf. Kelvin watches for a moment before walking away. Eventually, he finds the inn, Spirit Song, and greets the owner. He books a room and orders food. Relaxing in his room, he wishes for a bath, but Melfina informs him only kings and mansions have such luxuries in this world. He vows to someday own a house with a bath. Later, he steps out to eat, his excitement growing at the delicious aroma. Melfina pleads with him to work harder so she can be summoned faster and taste human food. Kelvin shares his experiences in his new world. He talks about the jobs he's taken on with Clotho, his new servant, and how they've been leveling up and dumping their skill points. He sets a goal to reach rank B in concealment, aiming to achieve that rank so he can finally feel at peace with the world and himself. The episode starts with Kelvin at the Adventurers Guild. After completing several tough and demanding jobs, he gets promoted from rank F to rank E. Agni congratulates him, but voices her concern when he keeps taking higher rank jobs solo. Melfina chimes in, explaining that Kelvin's under extra tight security and doesn't want his identity exposed. 2 young adventurers at the back of the guild eye Kelvin with envy, questioning his promotion. Other guild members gossip, speculating he's a mage from another kingdom. Agni, the receptionist, asks if he's a court mage, since his strength is unusual for a beginner. Kelvin brushes it off, saying he can't share much about his past. She warns him to be careful on his next job. He thanks her and requests a rank D mission. A voice suddenly calls out from the back, suggesting Kelvin take on a Black Ghost Knight job. A young guy strolls forward, and Agni immediately recognizes him, welcoming him back from his adventure. He introduces himself as Cashel, bragging about just finishing a rank C job despite being rank D himself. Other adventurers murmur about him. Some say he's as skilled as a rank B, but enjoys bullying newbies like Kelvin to intimidate them. Cashel invites Kelvin to join his party to hunt the Black Ghost Knight. Agni sharply interrupts, trying to talk Cashel out of it, but he ignores her and keeps pushing. Kelvin declines, but Cashel won't take no for an answer. Using his appraisal eyes, Kelvin checks Cashel's stats and finds unnervingly high skills along with a murderer title. Something feels off. Realizing Cashel won't back down, Kelvin makes a counteroffer, a competition to see who can take down the knight first. Cashel, surprised by his confidence, agrees, but insists on bringing his party, while Kelvin goes solo. After Cashel leaves, Kelvin admits he's walking into a trap on purpose. He's curious about Cashel's group and wants to show off the skills he's gained from leveling up. Cashel heads down a quiet street to meet his party. His teammate Gimel warns that Kelvin might be stronger than they think. His stats are concealed at rank C, making him unreadable. Cashel, caught off guard, admits he thought Kelvin was just a reckless newbie. The last party member, Raja, huge, angry guy, asks for permission to crush him. Cashel smirks and tells him to play nice at first, but then casually encourages the violence for his own amusement. The next scene shifts to the wicked spirit castle of the Black Ghost Knight. Cashel and his team charge in, only to find all the undead monsters already defeated. Kelvin emerges from the shadows, greeting them. Cashel spots the verdant staff in Kelvin's hand and realizes he's a green mage. Jimul calls him an idiot for hiding his true status but giving himself away with the staff. Kelvin points out the Black Ghost Knight waiting at the far end of the room. Cashel mocks him, saying Kelvin must have been too scared to take on the knight alone and waited for their help. Kelvin ignores the jab and coolly states he doesn't want distractions, so he'll deal with them first before handling the knight. Jimul guesses he's a bounty hunter after the reward on their heads, which would explain his high concealment skills. Unaware of any bounty, Kelvin smirks and says they've made his job easier by approaching him first. He taunts Raj with an insulting nickname, provoking him into a reckless charge. Raj ends up trapped in a mud vine Kelvin had set. Cashel grows uneasy, noting how flawlessly Kelvin uses concealment. Something feels off. Kelvin strikes fast. Gimul tries to bolt, but Kelvin summons Clothonau, a giant slime called Glutoniato, block his escape. Clotho slams Gimul into a wall. Raj breaks free from the vines, only for Clotho to snare him in slimy tentacles. Cashel lunges at Kelvin but gets knocked down hard. With all three subdued, Kelvin decides to turn them over to the guild. As he opens the door, the Black Ghost Knight stands before him. Scanning the knight's stats, Kelvin notices his unique traits and abruptly changes plans. Instead of fighting, he proposes a contract to recruit him. The knight is skeptical, so Kelvin introduces himself and explains his offer. They sit on the throne room staircase as the knight admits he's surprised most challengers attack on sight. He launches into a long backstory about his human past and transformation. Kelvin zones out, eventually cutting in to ask again about the contract. The knight demands a compelling reason to agree, so Kelvin challenges him to a duel. The knight accepts. Their battle is fierce, but with Clotho's help, Kelvin wins. The next day, he delivers a piece of the knight's armor to the guild, where cheers erupt. The crowd thanks him for capturing Cashel's evil party, now facing possible execution. Amid the celebration, Agni informs Kelvin of his upcoming rank promotion. On his way home, Gerald teases him about Agni, while Melfina mentally claims the title of fiancé. Kelvin shuts them both up. As he climbs the stairs, he spots a middle-aged man waiting for him. The scene opens with a flashback of Kelvin and the Black Ghost Knight Gerald. After being defeated, Gerald submits, and Kelvin forms a contract with him. Kelvin expresses sympathy for Gerald's loss of family and homeland. Kelvin watches an older man on the stairs, waiting for him to return. The man finally speaks, teasing Kelvin and calling it the perfect day for an adventure. Kelvin plays along, eager to set off on another quest right away. The man laughs, praising his work ethic but insisting he needs downtime. He reveals himself as the Guildmaster, explaining his popularity comes from his clever tricks. He asks if Kelvin is from another world. Nervous about being found out, Kelvin uses his appraisal eyes to check the Guildmaster's stats only, to realize the Guildmaster's appraisal skill outmatches his own and can hide his stats effortlessly. The two sit in the lounge as the Guildmaster brings up Ainge's report about Kelvin's fight with Cashel and the Black Ghost Knight. He questions Kelvin's summoner class. Flustered, Kelvin scolds himself for slipping up and listens to his servant's advice to come clean. Kelvin criticizes the Guildmaster for having high-level appraisal eyes yet letting criminals like Cashel roam free. The Guildmaster explains Cashel is a noble from the militant nation of Trison, and without solid proof, his hands are tied. He'd been building a case and was close to acting until Kelvin showed up. Pressed for the purpose of his visit, the Guildmaster says he wants to be friends, not enemies, mentioning he once knew others from another world like Kelvin. They were hailed as Deramis's heroes, and Melfina recalls their reincarnation. Kelvin asks her for details, but she promises to explain later. The Guildmaster warns that the Demon King's arrival, foretold by Deramis's priestess, will bring destruction. He suspects the recent surge in monster attacks is tied to the prophecy. He credits Gerald's power during Kelvin's fight as a sign of the Demon King's revival, and asks for Kelvin's help to stop him. In return, he offers an instant rank up, generous pay, and freedom from summoner class restrictions after the job. He adds that Kelvin's unique skills require a special rank to keep other factions from exploiting him. Kelvin agrees, and they shake on it. The next morning, the innkeeper excitedly congratulates Kelvin on his promotion to rank B, and promises a celebratory feast. Gerald ribs him about the innkeeper's attention, but Melfina snaps back, calling herself Kelvin's fiancé. Kelvin shuts down the teasing. Back in his room, he asks Melfina about the reincarnation she mentioned. She explains the priestess of Deramis handled the summoning, while her role was to find the humans involved. Comparing her words to the Guildmaster's, Kelvin realizes Melfina doesn't grasp the full weight of reincarnation. He finishes his meal and tries to sleep, but his mind keeps replaying the intense battle with Gerald. He summons Clotho and demands the reward money money stored in its inventory. Clotho shows him the cash, and Kelvin praises its organizational skills. Kelvin tells the inn owner, Claire, to prepare an extra plate for their celebration dinner. With the reward money in hand, he heads out into the street and reveals to his servants his plan to buy a slave girl. He explains that he needs the skill points of an unclaimed slave. When he arrives at the slaver's place, he sees a man burning after touching a half-elf girl. Kelvin recognizes her from before. Checking her stats, he confirms her skill points are untouched, but breaking her curse will require a sacred blessing spell from a rank white magic user. He leaves but returns by the end of the day to buy her. After paying the slave trader, they walk away together. She stops him halfway, thanking him for his kindness. Introducing herself as Ethel, she shares her life as a slave since birth. Kelvin asks her to join his party, but she hesitates, mentioning her fire dragon curse and fear of hurting others. Using his last skill points, he buys a rank A class to free her from the curse. Overwhelmed with gratitude, she kneels before him in tears. Melfina quips that Kelvin can keep the elf girl until he has enough MP to summon her again. He teases her back, praising her good heart. Kelvin and Ethel enter the inn, where Claire greets them. He asks Claire to dress Ethel properly for dinner, and she agrees, whisking her away. Kelvin waits impatiently, tossing and turning from hunger until they finally return. Stunned by Ethel's transformation, he's speechless before complimenting her beauty. She thanks him again, vowing to serve him well. They eat, and Ethel cries happily from excitement. During introductions, Kelvin explains his rank as a summoner and shares his skills with her, urging secrecy. That night, he struggles to sleep beside her due to no spare rooms, blaming her overwhelming cuteness for his distraction. The final scene shows a red-haired woman held captive by a powerful figure. Kelvin shares his experience working with Ethel and how they've been leveling up and taking jobs together. He mentions she spent all her skill points on archery and far-seeing, and when she leveled up, she learned sewing. She recreated the maid outfit Claire gave her. Kelvin also says he took up blacksmithing and is still practicing. He praises Ethel's incredible combat skills, thanks to her high-level archery, red magic, and the fire dragon's abilities. Next, Kelvin is at the guild, turning in proof of his latest completed job. Agne cheers his consistency, and Ethel gets excited about his upcoming promotion to rank A adventurer. Kelvin sympathizes with how Ethel nailed an arrow to her opponent's head during her last rank exam. Agne invites Ethel on a date, and she agrees. Ethel extends the invite to Kelvin, hoping he won't say no. Agne teases him into accepting, and he agrees to go out the next day. Ethel's face lights up with joy. The next day, Kelvin waits at the sweet shop for Ethel and Agne. He daydreams about the date, worrying how Melfina would react if she were there. Luckily, Agne snaps him out of it, calling his name loudly as she runs over. He compliments her outfit. When Agne asks about Ethel, he says she's taking her time. Soon, Ethel arrives, stunning in a gorgeous gown. Kelvin is left speechless by her beauty, and when she asks for their thoughts on her dress, Agne snaps him out of his daze. They both praise her. At the sweet shop, Ethel offers to feed Kelvin in public, but he declines. Three guys nearby get jealous, seeing him with the two most popular beautiful women. Agne gets competitive and tries to feed him too. Kelvin begs them to stop. Suddenly, a short prince with two guards interrupts their table. The guards demand Kelvin kneel, introducing the Prince of Tryson, a powerful military nation to the east. They threaten to teach him a lesson for disrespect. The prince demands the girls in exchange for forgiveness, but when the guards move closer, Kelvin attacks, slamming them into the wall. The terrified prince kneels, confessing he came to recruit Leo, a top adventurer in the city, to gain his people's trust. Kelvin lets them go and leaves with the girls. In Kelvin's room, Ethel wakes him up and thanks him for saving her. He apologizes for still sharing the same room, explaining that Claire refused to rent out another one for some reason. Tearfully, Ethel asks if he isn't attracted to her. Kelvin admits she's attractive but advises her to save such things for someone she truly loves. She confesses her love for him, and he reassures her that she's the most beautiful girl he knows. Overjoyed, Ethel hugs him. The next morning, Kelvin, Slime, and Gerald check the hero's stats with Melfina's help. Clotho extends part of itself to Ethel's shoulder to link her to the servant network. Gerald remarks that the hero's levels and skills are weak. Kelvin wonders what they've been doing all year. Melfina sighs, praising Kelvin's party for their growth instead. Kelvin brags about his blacksmithing skills, while Gerald teases him about his many failed attempts. Ethel proudly shows off the suit she sewed for Kelvin, and Melfina wishes Deramis's heroes were as strong as them. Claire suddenly barges in, announcing that the guild needs Kelvin. At the guild, the master informs him about a demon spotted in the Hermit's Cave by adventurers. Melfina confirms demons are among the strongest races, rivaling dragons. Since the demon's power is unknown, the guild master asks Kelvinus and S. Rankto handle it. He then shifts the topic, mentioning rumors about the Tryson Prince incident. He admits he's struggling to cover it up to avoid an international crisis and subtly blackmails Kelvin. Getting back on track, He asks if Kelvin will take the job. Kelvin agrees immediately, privately calling him the real demon. At the cave, Kelvin's party arrives to find other adventurers already there. Erd, the adventurer Ethel injured during the exam, greets them. Kelvin asks what's going on, and Erd explains a barrier's been placed. Kelvin tells the others to wait outside while his team ventures in. After a long trek, they find a door. Sensing two life forms, Kelvin orders his servants to attack the stronger one first. Inside, they're met with a gruesome scene-scattered skulls and a red-haired girl chained between two massive metal poles. A figure in armor introduces himself as Archdemon Victor. Kelvin gauges his rank as extremely high and smirks. They demand to know the girl's identity, and Victor reveals she's the Demon King Gustavo's secret daughter. He admits setting a trap to lure a powerful human, planning to devour them and steal their power to free her. When he attacks, Gerald blocks with a shield. Victor boasts about being the former Demon King's aide and declares he'll eat the girl to claim the throne for himself. Kelvin can't hide his excitement at finally facing an S-rank opponent. The Archdemon, noticing Kelvin's eagerness, revives the dead monsters in the room, taunting that Kelvin's party is outnumbered. He commands the creatures to attack, but Kelvin obliterates them with a wind shot. Gerald and Ethel join the fight, using their unique skills to take down the remaining monsters. The Archdemon observes the seamless teamwork between Kelvin and his servants, silently impressed. Once the monsters are defeated, Kelvin steps forward, challenging the Archdemon directly. The demon responds by throwing a smoke bomb to disorient them, then attempts a surprise attack from underground. Kelvin senses his movements, and the group defends though Gerald takes a hit. Kelvin quickly summons Clotho to immobilize the Archdemon for a brief moment, landing another spell. The Archdemon, incredibly powerful, shakes off the restraint, but they press the assault with another combined strike. Ethel fires a flaming arrow from behind while Gerald slashes with a spell-infused sword, severing the Archdemon's left arm. The demon admits Kelvin is only the second person to ever wound him so severely, blaming his weakened state on the era's prolonged peace. Kelvin offers him a chance to surrender, but the Archdemon smirks, claiming he's just getting started. Retreating briefly, he transforms into a monstrous, eerie form and attempts a spell-only to be bombarded by relentless attacks from the party. Gerald blocks a counterstrike but gets injured in the process. Ethel keeps firing arrows, and Clotho hurls a barrage of swords and scrap metal from Kelvin's failed blacksmithing attempts. Weakened and struggling, the Archdemon staggers under their final assault, collapsing into the building and causing the structure to tremble. A massive brick dislodges, plummeting toward the unconscious girl, but the Archdemon lunges to shield her at the last second. Kelvin, confused by the act, approaches as the demon lies dying. He demands to know the Archdemon's true motives. The demon reveals the truth. The girl is a princess, hidden by the Demon King to protect her from his enemies. When the hero stormed the castle and destroyed everything, the dying king placed a seal on her, ensuring no monster or evil could harm her, only a powerful human could break it. The Archdemon had guarded her for years, waiting for the day the hero would arrive, be defeated, and the princess could claim her throne as the next Demon King. With his last breath, the Archdemon begs Kelvin to free her from the seal and let her join his party. Kelvin offers to heal him by making him a servant, but the demon refuses. Kelvin approaches the girl and shatters the seal. She awakens, her horns and wings visible, and tearfully scolds her father and the Archdemon for their reckless choices. As she sobs over the demon's arm, the group exits the cage, with Kelvin carrying her on his back. Outside, the other adventurers spot them. Erd rushes over, and Ethel presents proof of the Archdemon's defeat, instructing him to verify it at the guild. When questioned about the girl, Kelvin smoothly lies about her identity, her demonic features concealed by her father's magic. Leaving the cleanup to the adventurers, they exit the cave. Kelvin heals Gerald, who was badly injured from the fight with the Demon King. Gerald evolves and resummons himself. Kelvin notices a change in Gerald's appearance as his stats skyrocket. During the battle, Clotho's shield takes a few hits and breaks, but it quickly repairs itself. Ethel is impressed by how much stronger he's become. Kelvin teases Gerald for talking big after being healed but acting weak when he was hurt. He then notices the princess has been quiet and approaches her. She questions his choice to take in the Demon King's daughter as a servant, worried about what others might say. Kelvin reassures her that his S-rank concealment will keep the girl hidden and urges her to relax. He suggests heading into town first, but the princess admits she's nervous. She's never left the mansion or been to a town before. Ethel assures her the people of Parth are friendly, and they set off together. As Kelvin and his group walk through the town's market, Saratha Demon King's daughter gasps in amazement at all the strange and new things around her. She's fascinated by the fruits, weapons, and items she's never seen before. Seeing her excitement, Kelvin relaxes, realizing he'd been worried for nothing. He tells Ethel to take Sarah to the inn while he heads there himself to report on his adventure. At the inn, Kelvin is promoted to rank A adventurer. To his surprise, Agne has thrown him a party to celebrate. He notices Ethel isn't quite fitting in but joins the festivities anyway, and everyone enjoys themselves. After the party, everyone crashes hard from all the fun. Kelvin wakes up in the middle of the night and realizes Sarah is missing. He gets up to look for her and finds her outside, talking to her herself, starts a lonely conversation with the deceased Victor, saying she loves this new world and wants to see the sea just like he once described to her. Suddenly, Sarah storms off, determined to find the ocean on her own. Kelvin stays hidden, watching her. The first scene reveals Kelvin's story of signing a contract with Sarah and making her his servant. He welcomes her to the party, and she thanks him. Kelvin is in his room at the inn with his servants, bragging about his S-rank blacksmithing skills. He crafts armor for Sarah using fragments of Victor's armor. As she requested, she wants to feel him by her side in battle. Ethel dubs the armor Queen of Terror, and Sarah approves. Kelvin then unveils the magic Dainslife sword he forged for Gerald using his S-rank skill. Ethel demands to see their weapons abilities, and Kelvin promises they'll show them in their next fight, brushing off further questions. When Ethel asks what food he craves, he says, rice, a bizarre choice in Parth. They question what rice is, and he explains the unique satisfaction of eating it. The next day, Kelvin, Ethel, and Sarah set off so Sarah can learn more about the world and fetch Kelvin's desired foods. He promises her a fishing trip, and mentions they're heading to Toraj, the water country, which has a rice-like plant he's always wanted to try. During the journey, Sarah excitedly begs Kelvin to let her ride a boat. Ethel, sitting beside him, jealously pulls his attention back to her. Gerald and Clotho silently tease the princess for her subtle maneuvering. Sarah suddenly senses they're being watched. Thieves the Black Wind crew, Toraj's most notorious gangliap from the bushes, halting the carriage. Their leader, a young woman, offers to take Sarah as a bounty, but when one attacks, Sarah punches him into the distance, shocking the crew. Kelvin notes her level 75 makes them no match for her. In Taraj's city, Sarah spots the sea and begs Kelvin to teach her to swim. He agrees, and they visit the local adventurers guild. The guildmaster, who was in Leo's, Parth's guildmaster, adventurer party 20 years ago, says Leo spoke highly of Kelvin surprising him, given Leo's stern demeanor. She explains the new Black Wind gang was once an adventurer party that defeated the old Black Wind. Ethel and Sarah want to take them down, but Kelvin warns it's not that simple. The guildmaster adds that their leader, Kristoff, is a national hero from Tryson. Taking him out could spark an international conflict, so she avoids it. Sarah gets mad about this, but Kelvin calms her down using the servant network. He tells her the guildmaster needs their help, and while he's not thrilled about Kristoff's level, he has no choice but to assist. He asks her to detect 4 powerful adventurers. She senses a strong adventurer entering town. He concludes that the heroes of Deramis will handle the task, so the attack will be labeled as a hero operation. The heroes meet with the guildmaster, who explains the town's situation. Toya, the party leader, is shocked by the news and wants to accept the job. 2 of his 4 party members disagree, saying they came for a different mission influenced by Melfina. They eventually decide to take the job and head toward the bandit hideout. Inside, a dozen kidnapped women are held in a room guarded by a strange-looking security guard. Soon, one of the guards walks in to pick a woman for his adventure. As he approaches a young mother and her daughter, they scream and refuse him. Suddenly, he's hit hard. Gerald knocks him down. The woman and her daughter thank them for showing up just in time. They move to the main room where the leader, Kristoff, tells one of his gang members that a team was attacked and their cover is blown. Another woman in the bandit crew yells at Kanra. The gang leader Sarah had attacked earlier. Another bandit sits back, saying he's looking forward to fighting a strong adventurer. Kelvin walks in with his servants, and the bandits get excited, ready to attack, but to their shock, Kelvin and his crew wipe them out effortlessly. The heroes arrive at the building, thinking an adventurer party attacked the bandits. When they notice people inside, they enter the room with the women and see a giant slime, Clotho, protecting them. Toya raises his sword to strike, but the daughter who was almost attacked earlier stops him, defending the slime. Toya introduces himself as a hero of Deramis, against his party's wishes. The women are amazed, praising the divine for sending heroes to save them. The mother urges them to help the former adventurers, warning that the bandits outnumber them, and the adventurers aren't strong enough. They enter another room and find 4 dead bodies, assuming they're the fallen adventurers. Charging out for revenge, they burst into another room and see Kelvin and his servants sitting there looking like the real bandits. Toya angrily demands how they could attack adventurers so unjustly and prepares to fight. Kelvin sits there smirking at them, answering like a true bandit. He mocks the adventurers, saying they were pitiful when they arrived, and he only gave them a light punishment, yet they begged for their lives. He taunts them, calling them weak despite being rank A adventurers, crying like babies. Toya and his party get furious at his words. They introduce themselves as the heroes, ready to fight for justice. Kelvin just laughs, calling them weak, and challenges Toya's party to fight him alone. Toya calls it cowardly and insists on facing him one-on-one. His party disagrees, saying he's being baited, and they all prepare to fight Kelvin, the supposed bandit leader. Kelvin is surprised by their reaction and discusses it with his own group while the heroes strategize. He explains he's acting this way to make sure the heroes see the bandits as villains, so they'll be reported and lose Tryson's protection. Gerald is impressed, calling him a real battle junkie. Sarah asks why he's fighting alone, and he reminds her she already joined in beating up the thieves earlier. He tells Ethel to bring the food basket so they can eat while watching him fight. Ethel worries and warns him about the heroes' unique skills, even though they're lower level. Kelvin says he wants to overcome his weakness in group fights by testing his new tool, which lets him learn his opponent's skills. Toya glares at him, calling him a thieving, kidnapping boss, and vows to win even if it costs his life. Each hero connects with their fairy before the battle, Toya with his light fairy, Setsuna with wind, Nana with water, and Miyabi with dark. The fight starts with Toya striking first. Kelvin counters with his Radiance Caster spell, hitting all four, but they block it. Nana releases a dragon from her backpack, blasting flames at him. He dodges with Sonic Accelerate, shocking Toya with his speed. Kelvin then uses Skill Itera tool he made from Victor's Armordo copy Miyabi's fighting style, knocking her out. The others rush to her while Toya angrily attacks. Nana heals Miyabi with Light Heal, reviving her. Kelvin and Toya clash fiercely until Toya's sword drops. Kelvin pummels him with magic-infused fists, breaking his stance. Setsuna is stunned. Toya's an S-rank swordsman, yet he's losing. Kelvin uses an S-rank martial skill he copied from Sarah, leaving Toya defenseless. Setsuna tries to help, but Kelvin blocks her with Earthen Rampage. She slices through with Zantetsu Cut, but Kelvin ambushes them, leaving Toya's hands bleeding. In pain, Toya mutters that he should be able to beat a thug like Kelvin if he wants to solo the Demon King. Setsuna slaps him hard, shocking him. She yells at him to stop being reckless, and remember they were chosen as heroes together. They fight as a team. Nana and Miyabi agree, telling him to take it easy. Toya, speechless and helpless about the situation, calls out their names and apologizes for his actions. They accept his apology and send a blurry light fairy toward Kelvin, leaving him momentarily unaware, though he quickly regains control of his vision. He admits their cleverness, but in the next second, Nana hits him with a frostbound attack while Miyabi lands a felony crush. The ground freezes beneath his feet, and a heavy weight presses down on his body. Tony and Setsuna charge at him to finish him off, but Kelvin self-detonates, healing his blinded eyes in the process. Caught off guard by the explosion, Toya and Setsuna barely manage to defend themselves but are weakened by the blast. They assume Kelvin couldn't have survived the destruction, yet he emerges unharmed. He applauds their teamwork but boasts that he can't lose with his spell active. He critiques their moves and even suggests better strategies for next time. They all attack him at once. Nana traps him in a frozen web, cutting off his assist magic. Miyabi summons a massive monster to strike, but even while bound, Kelvin counters by summoning his golems for defense. Sarah teases him, asking if he needs help, but he shuts her down. Miyabi launches another, stronger spell, but Kelvin only grows more excited by their effective attacks and blocks them effortlessly. Using the parallel thought skill he copied from Miyabi, he crafts a new spell, breaks free from his restraints, and shatters the ice bricks on the wall. The heroes are stunned yet again and launch a final assault, but Kelvin overpowers all four of them, leaving them unconscious and injured. In the next scene, Toya wakes up to familiar voices in his head. He opens his eyes to see Setsuna and Nana hovering over his wounded body. Spotting Kelvin with the young girl from the room, Toya tries to attack him for touching her, but Kelvin tells him to look closer. Toya then notices a tiny version of Clotho in her hands and realizes they're the adventurers who came before him. The girl confirms he's right and explains everything. Kelvin agrees and apologizes. Remembering his earlier advice to them, Toya drops to his knees and admits he was wrong. Sarah sarcastically remarks from behind that Kelvin put in the effort to make that happen. Toya concedes that Kelvin is the better, greater teacher and vows to do whatever he asks. Kelvin says he'll grant Toya's wish about the game, then jokingly tells him to start stripping. Everyone gasps in shock. The freed hostages from the bandits' hideout are seated in a vehicle, which speeds away as the young girl happily waves to Kelvin. The guildmaster informs Kelvin that they'll be taken to a safe location and will help the Toraj identify them. She adds that Kristoff and his bandit crew are locked up and will be interrogated about their ties to Tryson. Kelvin thanks her for the decision, and she, in turn, expresses gratitude for his help in overcoming the obstacle. When she asks about his next move, he responds with his plan for fun-filled punishment games. Kelvin trains the heroes in a river inside a sealed cave, summoning an octogigrant monster for them to fight. The creature smacks Toya, sending him flying. Setsuna steps in to defend him after noticing it charging electricity. Kelvin calls Nana and Miyabi from the back, instructing them to use the environment to their advantage, freezing the water to give the frontline fighters footing. The octogigrant attacks again, and Kelvin sighs at their lack of coordination. Sarah approaches him where he's sitting and demands to know why he's training them. Kelvin shrugs, saying he has no real reason other than the fact they're heroes chosen by Melfina, who teleported from another world. In his thoughts, he adds that they're from his homeland. A loud roar snaps his attention back. The monster's been defeated. He invites everyone to eat, and Ethel calls them over. The spread is full of delicacies, and Nana cheers at the sight. As they sit, Sarah demonstrates some combat moves, leaving Setsuna confused. Noticing her boredom, Kelvin suggests she go fishing. Toya and Setsuna chat about dungeon monsters growing stronger with the Demon King's return. Kelvin brings up the topic, asking Toya what he'd do if he faced an S-class dungeon boss with his current weak skills. Toya admits he'd run, knowing he can't win. Disappointed, Kelvin presses further. Toya insists he doesn't care what others think. He'll train hard with his party and eventually triumph. Impressed, Kelvin gives him a pass, reminding him not to forget those words before leaving them in the cave. Later, the heroes stand at the dock, ready to depart. Toya thanks Kelvin, and the servants for their time. Kelvin hands each a pendant as a lucky charm. Toya vows they'll be stronger next time they meet. They shake hands, and the heroes sail off. Kelvin stares at the horizon, troubled. Gerald approaches and asks what's wrong. Kelvin questions whether the Lazia Empire, the force that destroyed his home in Alcarl, can ever be defeated. Gerald admits he once thought it impossible, but now, with Kelvin's strength, he believes it's achievable. He praises Kelvin, and Ethel calls him a kind master. Out of nowhere, Sarah crashes into Kelvin with a flying leap. He escapes, wincing in pain, as she announces a Toraj guild messenger is here to see him. Realizing the reason he came from Parth is finally happening, Kelvin jumps in excitement. After taking down the bandits and the rank S boss, the king has taken notice and requested a meeting. At the palace, Kelvin and his group enter the king's court. He bows and hears a woman's voice. She introduces herself as the ruler, says she dislikes formalities, and tells them to stand straight. She praises Kelvin for his achievements and tells him to ask for anything he wants. Kelvin requests food, specifically rice. The queen laughs and informs him a banquet has already been prepared. She encourages them to eat and drink their fill. Kelvin happily enjoys the feast, especially the delicacies. After finally getting his long-awaited rice, he shouts with joy, devouring several bowls. Gerald and Sarah drink beer, while Ethel learns Japanese recipes from the chef. A few days later, Kelvin's party is still at the palace by the queen's invitation. Ethel brings lunch to his room, serving a dish that includes rice. Kelvin compliments her quick progress in cooking, and she credits the queen for the opportunity. The queen herself shows up to eat with them. Uncomfortable with her presence, Kelvin asks why she keeps joining him. She lies about liking Ethel's food, but reveals her true intentions when she moves closer, urging him to stay in Toraj. Kelvin explains he needs to protect Parth from monsters, but the queen flirtatiously insists he guard her day and night instead. Noticing Ethel still kneeling nearby, Kelvin quickly joins her to apologize, saying he must return home. The queen relents and offers them an easier route back. She opens a teleportation portal in the palace. Sarah mentions seeing a similar one in her father's mansion. Ethel asks why the heroes couldn't use it, and the queen explains they lacked the receiving country's permission, unlike Kelvin's group. Shocked to see Leo's stamp granting them access, Kelvin playfully curses him in his head before they depart. Back in Parth, Claire teases Kelvin about the queen's obvious interest in him. He insists he won't work for Toraj, preferring life as a free adventurer. Ethel enters with tea and asks about his plans for the day. He mentions going shopping later, prompting Claire to joke about him looking for another pretty servant. Kelvin loudly clarifies he's shopping for a house. After purchasing a mansion, Kelvin moves everyone in. He hires the young woman who was kidnapped in Toraj along with her talkative daughter as his maid. That night, struggling to adjust to the new bed after being used to the inn, he suddenly notices Melfina's arrival. He summons her, and she materializes into a stunning winged form. Impressed, Kelvin can't resist teasing her. Melfina finishes the delicacy. Ethel serves at the table, feeling completely satisfied. She praises Ethel's cooking and scolds Kelvin for buying the house while she was away. She mentions she went to the inn to find him but couldn't track him down. Kelvin shoots back, blaming her for not using the servant network to connect. Gerald, confused, asks Kelvin who the woman is. Melfina stands up and introduces herself. Gerald is shocked, while Sarah doesn't seem impressed. Melfina apologizes to Sarah about her father, the Demon King. Gerald sarcastically remarks that he thought Kelvin had brought home a new mistress. Kelvin instantly denies it, and Melfina declares herself his wife, not a mistress. The statement catches Kelvin so off guard that he spits out his food. Later, the group sits together for dessert. Melfina decides to reward Kelvin for successfully summoning her. She gifts him a flower called the Grace of Melfina, which has two effects. It lets him summon heroes from another world and grants him a once-a-month healing from any potentially fatal injury. Melfina and Sarah spar in the training grounds. Sarah attacks with her hand armora gift from Victor, but Melfina remains unharmed, and Sarah's armor vanishes. They exchange blows until Sarah lands a hit on Melfina's chest, winning the match. They help each other up, complementing each other's strength. Gerald, watching, asks why they fought. Sarah casually replies it was over, who gets to sleep next to Kelvin. Kelvin sits on the balcony, reflecting on Melfina's summoning gift. He wonders if the otherworldly heroes might be on the western continent and muses that anyone can be a hero if they can fight well. Meanwhile, Melfina and Sarah relax in a warm bath, refreshed after their battle. Ethel checks on Sarah's soreness, and Sarah says Kelvin already patched her up. Melfina recalls that Kelvin's mood has been off lately, and Ethel explains it started when she mentioned his summoning abilities. Melfina confronts Kelvin, suddenly stuffing a chocolate bar into his mouth. He complains, but she ignores him and demands to know if he has questions for her, specifically, why she wants heroes. She explains the cyclical nature of Demon Kings, how their Papia's skill amplifies their evil and nullifies pain, making them nearly invincible. Kelvin tenses up, wondering how they can be defeated. Melfina tells him that's why they summon heroes from other worlds. Their unique powers can break the Demon King's invincibility. Kelvin agrees, but argues that forcing people into heroism without their consent isn't right, since they'd need time to adjust. Melfina offers reincarnation as an alternative, though it's costly in MP, and limited to one powerful individual. She reassures him he has time to decide, but only one shot at it. Kelvin gathers the party and maids together. Melfina is surprised by how quickly he made his decision, given how uncertain he'd been before. Kelvin admits he's still not entirely sure, but he's consulted everyone about it. He has a lot of responsibilities, and if he can't handle a hero, then he isn't strong enough for bigger tasks. Gerald cheers him on, and Sarah says she's ready to meet her new sparring partner. Ethel reminds the new maids to behave properly during the summoning, and when the hero arrives, Kelvin dismisses his servants, and they return to his mind. Ethel hands him a strengthening potion to restore his MP, which he drinks. Melfina begins the reincarnation summoning using his magic. He lets her use nearly all his MP, keeping just a sliver to summon the strongest hero possible. The summoning starts, and after a while, Kelvin sits back, watching the bright green light as he waits for the hero to appear. Melfina explains that the hero is currently choosing skills for their new life. Kelvin guesses the selection might take half a day, but Melfina clarifies that time works differently here. Almost immediately, she announces that the hero has picked their skills and is on the way. Finally, the hero appears a small girl. Kelvin is stunned to see a child. He introduces himself, and she gets excited when she learns he's an adventurer. She introduces herself as Ryo Seiki. He apologizes for reincarnating her, but she bursts into tears, overwhelmed with gratitude. Kelvin yells at her to stop crying, but she keeps going. Gerald, as usual, teases him, saying he has a knack for making girls cry at first meetings. Kelvin denies it, and Ryo passes out from exhaustion. Melfina explains she's drained, and Kelvin blames it on her being a kid. Melfina assures him that since he poured all his MP into her, she's the best possible summon. Then, Kelvin collapses too, unconscious from the magic drain. Ryo sleeps deeply but wakes up from a nightmare. She rushes outside, running until she trips. She's thrilled just to smell the grass and see the sky. Kelvin walks over and talks to her. He says he understands how it feels to be in a new world since he was also reincarnated. He doesn't want to force her into anything, especially since she remembers her past life. Ryo cuts him off, saying she's actually really excited. She explains that in her past life, she was sickly, never able to walk or go to school. Her only escape was adventure books. Now, she wants to join his party and make the most of her second chance. As they head back inside, Kelvin mentions that black hair is rare in town, so she'll need to pretend to be his half-sister from far away. She's overjoyed. She was an only child before and loves the idea. She picks a nickname for him, and he smiles. Kelvin wakes up to find Sarah on the bed and remembers the dining room conversation about who would sleep next to him. He shifts onto his back and discovers Melfina behind him, chuckling at her sleep-talking. When he tries to move his legs, he realizes Ryan is curled up under the covers between them. He muses whether sisters always sneak into their brother's bed like this, but is glad she fits comfortably. Finally, he gets up, walks to the window, and remarks that it's going to be a busy day. Kelvin takes everyone from his house to the dark purple forest. Ryan dashes around excitedly, saying it feels like a dungeon game. The maids, Ellie and Luca, sit on a mat with Melfina. Ellie asks why they're in the forest with them, and Kelvin explains he wants them to gain a few levels for basic self-defense even, though his golems guard the mansion. Luca admits she's never fought monsters, but Kelvin reassures her they'll be safe, staying near the dungeon entrance and leveling up through experience sharing. Meanwhile, Sarah, Clotho, and Gerald hunt monsters deeper inside. Clotho distributes shared experience via the servant network, and soon, their stats skyrocket, leaving them stunned. Ephil detects a shadow wolf approaching. It lunges at them, but Kelvin freezes it mid-air with an air pressure spell before taming it. Rion and the maid's daughter gleefully play with their new wolf companion. Then, Ephil spots Erd's party entering the forest, surprising Kelvin, who thought the area was usually empty. Erd greets him, and Kelvin fibs about being there for a picnic. Erd eyes the women and asks if they're his party. Kelvin confirms, except for the maids, Ellie and Luca. When asked about their mission, Erd explains they're hunting monsters to pass their Rank B exam. Erd's teammates grumble jealously about Kelvin surrounded by beautiful women, calling Rion his cute little sister and Melfina a lovely saint. Erd tells them to knock it off, but they retort that he wouldn't get it, since he has a wife and kids before running off. Kelvin laughs at the drama. Soon, Sira, Clotho, and Gerald return. After hearing about Erd's mission, Gerald realizes they've caused a problem. Ethel scans the forest and confirms no monsters remain. Sarah and Gerald admit they wiped them all out. Kelvin rushes to apologize to Erd, who brushes it off, saying Leo will understand. Erd then drops a bombshell. His party's strength now qualifies them for the Rank S exam. Kelvin is floored. Back at the mansion, Kelvin and Rion bathe the wolf. He grumbles about the guildmaster keeping quiet on his potential Rank S promotion, but Alex insists he'll ace the exam. The wolf shakes off water, splashing Kelvin, making Ryan laugh. Smiling, Kelvin leashes the wolf, hands it to Ryan, and declares it her partner. When the wolf talks to her, she responds, shocking Kelvin and Ethel. Rion casually reveals it's one of her skills. Gerald calls out to Rion to start her sword training. She runs off to meet him, and they begin their session. She learns to fish with Sarah, has fun at Claire's Inn, dances with the maids, and rides her wolf at top speed. Melfina and Kelvin check on her while she's asleep and confirm she's doing better. Rion's stats have improved, and her level has increased. It's nighttime at the mansion. Kelvin, Clotho, Rion, and Sarah are awake while the others are fast asleep. Masked men surround the mansion, planning to attack. Sarah senses them through telepathy and counts 14. Gerald stands guard at the maid's door to keep them safe. Kelvin uses the far-seeing skill he copied from Eiffel to check their stats and notices their low level. He encourages Rion and her wolf to take them on. Rion eagerly accepts the challenge. Kelvin uses a small part of Clotho to link her to the servant network for far-seeing and presents her with a resounding mithril sword he reforged from Cashel. The leader of the masked men plans to attack Kelvin, having heard they worked with the Deramis heroes to destroy Kristoff and his team. Rion steps outside, excited and confident about her task. She charges at the men and succeeds. Inside the mansion, Kelvin and Sarah analyze her strengths and weaknesses, with Sarah pointing out areas for improvement. Kelvin heads into the forest to search for the leader, instructing Sarah to take Rion and her wolf back inside. He orders Clotho to clean up the battlefield. Kelvin finds the leader in the forest as he tries to retreat. At Tryson Castle, the Emperor and his generals gather at the round table to discuss the mess Kristoff has caused. Asgard, the Dragoon general, blames Tristan, the mixed demon beast army general, for securing slaves in Toraj, which led to the incident. Tristan dismisses it as a barbaric adventure with no real purpose. Dan Dalba, the Iron Steel Knight general, shuts him down, calling his arguments pointless. He warns that Gon, Tora, and Deramis are blaming them, and war could break out if they don't clear their name. Tristan suggests starting a war since their armies are stronger and well prepared. The vote ends in a tie, so the Emperor summons the last general to break it. Dan's son, Idilba, finds General Clive at his strange-looking residence, but Clive greets him naked and asks for his opinion on his appearance. Kelvin and his party travel by carriage through the southwestern part of Gon, deep in the Crest Forest. Melfina flies above the chariots with her wings to guard against surprise attacks. Inside the carriage, Ethel gets the strange feeling she's been to this place before. Kelvin suggests it might be her elven blood stirring her instincts. Sarah mentions that she was taught elves lived on the western continent, not the east. Melfina clarifies that some elves migrated to the eastern continent under the protection of the Gon King. Kelvin then explains the reason for their urgent trip, flashing back to his conversation with the Guildmaster about his recent attackers. He reveals that every country has noticed suspicious activity from Tryson near their borders, hinting at possible war preparations. The Guildmaster warns Kelvin to stay cautious, since he was targeted for his involvement in the incident. The Guildmaster then hands him an invitation letter from Leonhart Gon, the Beast King of Gon, who wants to meet him and offer the Rank S promotion exam. As they ride, Kelvin discusses the situation with his party, realizing the king is an incredibly powerful figure who doesn't need their help in battle. Gerald asks if Kelvin has other plans, but Kelvin insists he isn't thinking about challenging the Gon King. Kelvin suspects the earlier attack might have been orchestrated by Tryson and reassures his party not to fear. Ethel urges him to avoid unnecessary risks. Suddenly, an arrow lands right in front of their carriage, forcing them to stop. Kelvin presents the king's letter and introduces himself as an adventurer. A young man with a blue-eyed staff steps forward, apologizing for the interruption. He introduces himself as Delras, elder of the elf village, and mentions the Gon King has spoken highly of Kelvin. But as Delras approaches, he freezes mid-step, staring at Ethel in shock. He calls her Lumiel, demanding to know how she's still alive. Kelvin and Ethel exchange confused glances. Once seated, Delras apologizes for mistaking Ethel for Lumiel. Kelvin presses him to explain who Lumiel was and whether her story could help uncover Ethel's past. Delras recounts how their village once lived peacefully in the western continent's deepest forests, until the Fire Dragon King arrived 20 years ago. The Dragon King accused someone in the village of humiliating him, demanding the culprit surrender or he'd burn everything to ashes. The elves were baffled by his rage, and half the villagers died without ever understanding why. The attacks only stopped when a woman stepped forward to sacrifice herself. The Dragon King admitted she wasn't the one he sought, but offered a deal. If she married him, he'd spare the village. She agreed, and the violence ended. Rian praises her bravery, but Gerald questions why the elves still fled to the eastern continent afterward. Delras explains that years later, Lumiel's body was found dead in the village under mysterious circumstances. Fearing the Dragon King's return, the elves relocated to evade him. Sarah suggests that if Ethel resembles Lumiel, she might be her daughter. Gerald takes it further, proposing she could be the child of Lumiel and the Fire Dragon King. Melfina doubts this, arguing a half-elf with dragon blood would have overwhelming power. Delras admits he knows nothing more. Eiffel reassures everyone she's content, she has no memories of her parents and is happy with her new family. Kelvin asks Delras about the real situation. Delras explains that monsters have been abducting elves from their villages, even though a directional disruption barrier is in place. He complains that they've fought back alongside Gon's soldiers but are no match for the monsters. Kelvin's party sympathizes and offers to help protect them. Kelvin requests the elders' permission to renovate the village to make it harder for monsters to invade. Delras agrees. Kelvin grins mischievously and says it's time to get to work. The mixed demon beast armies patrol the forests, expecting Gon's soldiers to engage them. As they talk, invisible arrows strike down the soldiers one by one. Kelvin and Ethel stand atop a watchtower. Eiffel uses the shadow bow Merciless, crafted for her by Kelvin, to fire the silent, undetectable arrows. Using their farsight skills, they observe the battlefield. Kelvin mentions he built the watchtower with adamantine rampant. Meanwhile, Melfina conjures fog outside the elf village walls with her blue magic. Kelvin reinforces the walls, and Sarah enchants the moat water with black magic. Gerald remarks that their traps will do most of the work. In the mixed demon beast camp, a fleeing soldier reports to the vice commander, explaining that their attackers aren't Gon's forces but an adventurer party. The vice commander grips a white horn, preparing to summon their secret weapon. Suddenly, Melfina, Rion, and her wolf emerge from the dark woods, thanking the guard for leading them there. The guard flees as the vice commander blows the horn, summoning a colossal monster from the forest. Melfina challenges Rion to slay the beast, promising she'll become a full-fledged adventurer if she succeeds. Rion accepts. Her first sword shatters against the monster, forcing her to retreat. Clothe hands her new blades, and she attacks again with a dual-wielding technique. The vice commander and soldiers are stunned by her skill. She strikes with the false holy sword and magic sword, Khalidbalg forged by Kelvin, while her wolf unleashes Raging Blade. The monster staggers, nearly defeated. The vice commander transforms it into a massive furnace monster. Rion taunts that its flames are weaker than Ethel's and finishes it off with the same strategy. The vice commander weeps, lamenting that a young girl wiped out both the mixed demon beasts and Trison's army. Overjoyed, Rion hugs Melfina. From the tower, Kelvin applauds her rapid growth. Suddenly, they're ambushed, but fend off the attack. Spotting a male and 4 female warriors in the sky, Kelvin smirks darkly. General Clive from Trison Castle floats in the sky with his 4 female warriors. He spots Ethel, takes a liking to her, and declares her his favorite elf out of all he's seen. He orders her to become his slave and uses his charming eye skill to force obedience. Kelvin quickly blocks the attack, angering Clive for interfering with his magic. Kelvin snaps that Clive has no right to touch his woman. Clive mocks it as a cheesy line. Kelvin checks Clive's stats, noticing his unique skills, and asks if he's reincarnated. Surprised, Clive admits his concealment is rank A only. Someone else reincarnated could spot it with appraisal eyes. Kelvin orders Ethel to retreat into the village, warning he's about to destroy the watchtower. Ethel obeys, using stealth to escape. Clive shouts for her to stop, but Kelvin strikes unexpectedly, knocking him off balance. Kelvin demolishes the watchtower and summons 4 obsidian edge lances, hurling them at Clive. Clive blocks effortlessly with his helix barrier, deflecting the attack. Kelvin smirks, impressed by his strength. Clive scoffs at his creepy grin and tells him to watch his back instead. The female warriors charge Kelvin, but he blocks with his lances, realizing they're charmed. He avoids harming them, calling Clive a pathetic hero for magically enslaving his own party. Clive retorts that they're thrilled to serve a gorgeous master like him. He taunts Kelvin, saying he's outnumbered and should die, so Clive can claim Ethel. Ethel fires a penetrating arrow straight through his helix barrier, silencing him. Kelvin surprises Clive by summoning 4 golems, earning Clive's grudging respect for his black magic. Clive sends his warriors to attack the golems, but Kelvin orders his constructs not to kill them. The 2 men clash, trading rapid blows. Kelvin's relentless strikes are blocked, while Clive's attacks force Kelvin to dodge. He halts abruptly when he realizes stray shots are hitting the golems and charmed warriors. Clive shrugs, saying he has plenty more to spare. Kelvin ascends higher, and Clive realizes he's protecting the warriors. He calls Kelvin a fellow battle junkie who craves power like him. Kelvin agrees. Power excites him, but says ignoring those who love him makes someone pathetic and ugly. Clive scowls, declaring he dislikes Kelvin, who fires back the same. Clive attacks with Helix Barrier. Kelvin counters with Vortex Edge. A blinding explosion follows Clive's face is cut, and Kelvin's staff shatters. Enraged by his scar, Clive unleashes his ultimate rank S spell, engulfing the entire village in magic. The force knocks everyone back, and Kelvin struggles to stay upright, muttering how bad this looks. He commands Clotho to bring out his rank S Blackstaff Disaster, channeling his own ultimate magic. With the Boreas Death Scythe spell, he slices Clive's magic core in half, dispersing the spell. Clive crashes to the ground, legs torn from his body. As Kelvin moves in for the kill, Clive's body vanishes without a trace. Kelvin turns around and spots another general standing with a massive monster. The man introduces himself as Tristan Faze, a general of the mixed demon beast army who orchestrated the attack on the elven village. Kelvin questions his summoning magic, connecting it to the creature. Tristan admits they've lost the battle but retreats, insisting on taking General Clive with him for his own purposes. He vanishes before Kelvin's eyes. Kelvin's servants reach out to him through their network, all asking about the general. He apologizes for letting Tristan escape, then says he's heading back to the village to regroup with them. Ethel reports their victory to the Elder, explaining how they defeated the Trison generals and saved the village. The Elder orders a celebratory feast. Gerald teases Ethel about Kelvin, calling her his woman, making her blush as she admits she's happy her master said it. When Kelvin joins them and asks what he supposedly said, Ethel drops to her knees, her face burning with embarrassment. Sarah, Rion, and Melfina race back to Kelvin. Rion wins by teleporting with her wolf using a spell she just invented. Sarah groans about losing to Rion instead of Melfina, but Mel tells her to be proud of Rion's growth. Sarah smiles and congratulates her. Rion excitedly recounts her adventure and victory to Kelvin. Meanwhile, in Trison's castle, General Clive lies chained to a table, his legs healed by Tristan. Tristan enters and coldly informs Clive that he'll be a test subject as a reincarnated being. He'll endure 342 cursed weapons before being healed. He hands Clive over to his subordinates with strict orders to keep him alive, then leaves. Back at the Elven village, everyone celebrates with a lively banquet. Kelvin sits alone under a tree when Ethel approaches. She shows him a gift from the Elder, a keepsake from her mother, and he helps her fasten it in her hair. She shares her joy at being accepted by the elves, despite being half-elven, and asks what's on his mind. Kelvin reflects on wanting to grow stronger to protect those he loves, and expresses gratitude for the bonds he's formed in this world. A sudden flash of his past life flickers in his mind. The other adventurers call out to him as they approach. Sarah cracks a joke, and they all rush over. A young girl suddenly sprints up to Kelvin, thanking him for saving her village. When he pats her head, she bursts into laughter, surprising everyone. She introduces herself as Leohart Gauntha, Beast King of Gaun. Their jaws drop. He explains he can shapeshift and has been observing Kelvin's exams, declaring that he's now officially a rank S summoner. His party cheers for him, and Kelvin grins in triumph. The king invites him to his coronation ceremony in 4 days, where he'll compete against other rank S summoners. Kelvin's eyes light up at the prospect of battle, while his party exchanges awkward glances at his enthusiasm.